Now
And
we
we'll
have nothing
just
to talk about. We're just going to stay.
Yeah,
sit here
we
and
go to
stare at
dead
each other.
silence now.
we can talk about chickens and
Chickens.
cloacas. You know, I always love talking about a cloaca. Oh, so Carlos, it looks like when it comes on, I'm just looking at the Zoom right now. And oh, and for I think it was Pat, you were asking about it. It looks like the bottom left corner, there's a pause and a volume when you hover over it. So,
Yes, got it.
and it does look like the speaker view is on, Carlos, and you did that on purpose? Okay, well, that's a good point in that when you're the reader, how about all of us put our mutes on so that we don't accidentally draw attention away by going like sneezing or something. And then I would suggest at the end, if everybody's reading, unmute yourselves so that we can all hear the applause from each other.
I'm going
That's
to
always
have to run away for just a second. I'll be right back.
sure, Bat, no worries. Oh, it is 6 o'clock already. Gracious. And I think, so I think before we start officially, we'll just wait a few minutes for people to stream in, should they care to. And then, Jaymee, what I was thinking is I would read the text that was sent about the history of Tachyon, and then I would ask you those questions that I sent you in an email after introducing you. And then I'll introduce the readers in no particular order. So right now, sorry, this is just logistics if anybody is in the chat, but I don't think you are. If you want to say as a reader, like if you'd rather go first or last, or if you have any preference for whatever reason, I would say drop it in the Zoom chat right now so that I will know to forefront you. Oh, okay, perfect. No preference. Excellent. All right. As soon as Pat gets back, let's just see. Oh, hello. We do have some audience. Hello, Our Lady Jack. Thank you for coming. Our Lady Jack works with another small press called Ruadon. Ruadin. Anyway, I I should know I've had to pronounce it in an audiobook, but we're going to do an event with them in January, which will be really fun. Frentish, Kimberly Frentish. Sure. Okay, let me just find Kimberly's. There you are, your bio. And I'm just going to put you first after Jaymee. And that way, just in case you have to
going.
leaving on a jet plane. All right.
I'm in the airport lounge right now in New Zealand. So
Whoa.
at some point they'll ding me and say, hey, your plane is boarding. And I will have to like.
Oh, you're like
No
literally
bet.
at the airport.
Literally at an airport.
Wow.
All right, friends, let's get started. Welcome to our 30th anniversary reading for Tachyon Publications. I'm going to read to you a little bit about Tachyon Publications for you in the chat, and then I'm going to introduce you to editor Jaymee. Go. Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm Claire. I'm CSE Cootie, and I just like Tachyon Publications, and all these authors are awesome, and that's why I'm here. Okay. Tachyon Publications. In July 1995, Jacob Weisman, an avid young science fiction fan and intern at Asimov's Science Fiction and Locus magazines, published Ganglion and Other Stories by Wayne Wightman. The success of Ganglion, as well as that of the next book, The Black Flame by Stanley G. Weinbaum, inspired Weisman to continue expanding his publishing program. Initially, Weisman concentrated on bringing classic works that he loved back into print, including fiction by Robert Nathan and Mary Shelley. But Weisman quickly branched out by publishing work by contemporary authors he admired, such as Peter S. Beagle and Patricia A. McKillop. Ah, I love them. I love them. That's not part of the bio. Okay, concentrate. By the early aughts, Tachyon had become widely known for its carefully curated, high-quality publications. In 2002, Weisman hired his first employee, managing editor Jill Roberts. He signed on for national distribution shortly thereafter. Over the years, Weisman's staff has grown to include a 6-member international team, which includes editor Jaymee Go, who's here with us tonight, lead designer Elizabeth Story, publicity manager Rick Claw, and publicist Casey Lansdale. And Casey really made this night possible. Casey is the backbone of this event. In 2025, Tachyon Publications has reached is reaching in the moment its 30th year in publishing. Tachyon has already put out 220 books, typically between 8 and 10 titles annually, and primarily in the genres of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. The company continues to champion smart genre fiction for everyone. And what does the world need more of? Smart genre fiction. All right, I'm going to introduce to you editor Jaymee Go, who ran away from academia to fall into publishing as an editor at Tachyon. She has a PhD in comparative literature on science fiction studies and critical race theory, and became famous on the internet by yelling on Twitter. She co-edited a couple of steampunk-themed anthologies and writes short fiction about disappointing children and misandrist mermaids. At Tachyon, Jaymee has spearheaded our debut author series and our partnership with, their partnership with 8 Light Minutes. She is judiciously ignoring her first novel in favor of her second, third, and nth novels. Jaymee, hi.
Hi.
It's so good to talk to you. What
It's so
time
good
is
to
it
talk to
over where
you.
you are?
It is 8:05 in the morning. It is a good time to be awake, honestly. Like, this is actually a really good time to be awake. It's raining outside, but on an ordinary day, I'm either having fed the cats and starting work, or I'm walking my cat.
So
out
you're
on
not
the street.
ordinarily having party time on a Twitch channel.
I'm not ordinary having party time on the Twitch channel. I am sometimes on a Zoom chat with a manager on my boss.
Well, I hope that feels like a party, because wouldn't that be great if work felt like a
It
party all
does
the
feel
time?
like a party, yeah. Because like being in Malaysia, I so rarely get to interface with any of my colleagues. So it's always nice to be able to like see their faces and interact with them in real time rather than just like on chat.
Yeah.
And they're
Endless
usually like,
emails.
yeah, and endless emails. And they're usually like busy on chat, like talking to each other on chat when I'm not awake. So it's just nice to be able to have some like chat time.
I'm going to ask you these questions. They're not going to come as any surprise to you, since I sent you these questions in an email. But maybe you haven't thought about them since then, or maybe you've written answers. I don't know. You'll surprise me however you answer. So the first thing I would like to ask you tonight, what is one thing or more that you love about Tachyon books that you want the world, aka anybody who's watching Twitch or later on YouTube, what you want them to know about Tachyon that you love?
What the one thing I love about Tachyon is that every different book project feels like a surprise. It's it feels like we're doing a completely different project every season.
Ha!
We have completely different themes. Um, I I like getting the range of submissions in my inbox, and I never know what Jacob is going to say yes to me. And I love how we run the gamut of doing reprints of short stories in collections and anthologies and new novels. So that has been like the best part of doing my job is, one, I get to work with like all these incredible authors, like Sam Miller, who got me here, and and more recently with Theodora Goss, and Keita Beagle, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Being able to do reprints of all their short story collections, many of which have already been they've shown up elsewhere. But then we get to like present them in a new format, and it's always really exciting to be able to do that.
And they're so pretty. Oh my gosh, I've tried to get every killip that you've gotten in some of the Beagles, and I'm excited for the Theodora Goss, and I'm excited to get all of these authors as well, wherever I can find them. I'm going to ask you the next question. What do you think? I know this is sort of hyperbolized language where I'm like, what's your favorite? What's one thing? What's the best? And you really don't have to take me at my word. You can name like 5 things, and they could only be the best right now, and you'd have 5 different best in 5 seconds, but that's fine. So what is the most delicious part about being an editor? And you went into it a little bit about like, you're surprised every time you open your inbox. What, you can get more into that if you want.
Honestly, so before I joined Tachyon, Tachyon didn't really do a lot of like debut novels, and I get to do that. Like, I get to bring people I think are really awesome out onto like the main stage. And
So
that's been
cool.
like one of my favorite things. I've also worked with more seasoned authors like Pat and like who else am I thinking? I'm forgetting right now because it's so early. But and that's also super awesome. Like just being able to work with like authors and that is some of the funnest parts, and like just leaving them like comments in the margins of their manuscript is super fun. Having conversations with them about whatever it is that they're working on, kind of like brainstorming with them, interfacing with them in any way possible, is always like super fun for me.
It's
and I've met
amazing, like a
few of them
debut
in
novel too.
person.
It's debut
Like,
novels is like that changes people's lives though. Like this is the
yeah,
thing, people work so that, like you get to be part of this pivotal moment in their career. That has to be awesome.
yeah, yes, I do. And it is awesome. Like, yeah, especially if I know that their novel has been out in submission for a while, and I'm like, well, let me try Jacob because it's also awesome, and I want to bring it to the main stage.
Just
And
love
ta-da,
it.
here, there it is.
Ta-da.
Often with an awesome cover, with a beautiful interior. And yeah, and just like being able to make manifest that dream is just, it's just one of the best parts of being an editor.
So cool.
But I really love the process. I
Mhm.
really love that editing process. Like, I love printing out the manuscripts and sitting in a cafe for hours, just like pouring over line by line and being like, I just found a weird thing, and I would like you to explain this to me.
Oh, it's so cool. I like in theater, I love to go, even if I'm not in a play, I like to go to other people's rehearsals and just watch them work from the very, like the table reading, and then it's somewhere in the middle. But I imagine editing
Yeah.
is like that if you're like there in the trenches.
Is. Yes, it kind of is, because you're kind of workshopping the thing as you go along. And there's always like some tiny tweak to be made until like, proofreading, after which I'm like, no more tweaks, no more tweaks. Like, you have to think about a poor Elizabeth who's laying out the interior and it's like change everything up if you do too much tweaks.
Yeah, Carlos says, you're done writing. He's quoting someone, and I don't remember who, maybe it was Oscar Wilde, but like, you're done writing when you're putting a comma in the morning and taking it out at night. It's like, all right, hands off, stand back.
Yes.
My last question for you is, if a good fairy, or perhaps a slightly tricky but not terribly malevolent djinn, came in and told you they'd grant you a wish for Tachyon's future, what would you ask this entity?
At least another 70 years so we can reach 100.
and may we all be there for that Twitch broadcast.
Yeah. like I want us to do well enough. I want all our books to sell well enough that we can last another 70 years. I think that would be really awesome.
That's so cool.
I don't know that Jacob will last that long, but hopefully he will.
But maybe Jacob will, pass the mantle. There will be mantle passage. That could be cool.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
But either way, it should stay the way it is and indie press for another 70 years. That's my hope.
Let's hear it for the indie press. Thank you so much, Jaymee. That was awesome. And dear chat, darling chat, so far, Our Lady Jack. But if you have any questions about editing or Tachyon or of any of the authors to come, do drop it in the chat and I will be monitoring back and forth. But for now, I'm going to introduce to you our first reader, Kimberly Unger, who created her first video game back when the 80 column card was the hot new thing. This turned a literary love of science fiction into a full-blown obsession with the intersection of technology and humanity. Today, she spends her day job time in MR, lectures on the intersection of art and code to anyone who will listen. We have to talk. Well, not you and me, because I won't understand code, but Carlos will. And write science fiction about how all these app-driven superpowers are going to change the human race. You can find her on Insta at ing3new. I'm dropping that in the chat right now. Or on her blog at www.ungerinc.com. Kimberly, I'm going to mute myself and you take it away.
Fantastic. Hey, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Kimberly Unger. I was one of Jaymee's early authors, and she did an absolutely bang-up job on this book. So I am delighted to be able to read a piece of it to you tonight. Normally I start at the beginning because I write cyberpunk, and if you're not a cyberpunk person, it turns into acronym salad if I'm not careful. But tonight I think I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to get to some of the action sequences, and we're going to see a little more of how these sort of combative engagements happen in virtual reality and in mixed reality, which is where some percentage of this book takes place. So let me kick you off. Here we go. Okay. McKay risked a look into the real world, conscripting one of the warehouse security cameras to get a wider view. There was only one possible reason for Rose to go after the drone AIs. She hadn't been able to stop McKay in the swim, so she was coming after them in the real world, either looking to cut the hard line that McKay was using to pull Mike out, or possibly just looking to kill everyone outright. She'd try to avoid Brighton and Rice if she could, but things were already messy, and McKay was no longer sure that being Rose's friends gave them any kind of immunity. Brighton and Rice had barricaded the doorway and were clearly gearing up to defend against something coming in. I thought they weren't cleared for live ammunition, Rice snapped. They're not. Brighton cracked her stunner open, pulled the blue-backed capacitor and swapped it for a heavier red-backed one. The weapon powered back up with an ominous crackle. So not only are we going to get shot at, these things are probably loaded with red hots or some other anti-personnel ordnance that looks really awesome in a catalog. Rice griped as he copied Brighton and bumped his stunner up to a lethal range. Yep, get ready. Brighton held her hand scanner up and showed him the readout. McKay got carefully to her feet. She'd managed to save one AI from Rose's attack. Hopefully it could intervene and give them an advantage. The first weaponized drone rounded the corner, stepping over the carpet of Zoomers. These crowd-sized control drones were quadrupedal, each knobby-kneed leg ending in a rubberized three-toed foot that let them walk right over the top of the tightly little vacuum robots. The first one reached the barricade and reared up, its sensor dome searching for targets. Brighton and Rice stayed down behind the crates, and sweat began to bead on McKay's face, running down to leave its imprint on her shirt. The drone ran its facial recognition routines. McKay could feel it through the overlay, and then cycled its weapon until it settled on a choice of rounds. Jesus, Brighton noticed and moved to get McKay out of the line of fire, but the coder held up a hand. Stay down, that one's mine. McKay managed to get the words out, splitting her attention like this was expensive. The drag of the spin drive slowed her down. In the corner of her mind, she kept an eye on Mike's transfer to the drive. Nearly there. As long as Rose is trying to kill us in the real world, she won't be able to stop the transfer in the swim. Yours? Rose has all the others. Her eyes were completely white, any semblance of humanity in them washed out by the volume of the data she was processing. Her fingertips twitched, a gesture she couldn't control. Rose is out of it, McKay. This has got to be the in-house security. Brighton glanced at Rice. Or maybe we have a new player. McKay smiled, an absent gesture that was more rote reaction than genuine pleasure. It's the same players. Rose is trying to change the rules. Get down. If it goes through with this, it's going to be messy. If it doesn't, it's still going to be messy, but we might not be alive to care. Rice took the hint, put one arm over his head to deflect flying debris. Brighton paused up next to him, keeping her head below the top of the crate. McKay's drone turned to face the hallway, ratcheted through its magazines again, and then opened fire. It wasn't the noise that surprised her. McKay already knew that emptying the magazine in a confined space would be hellishly loud. It was the pressure she'd forgotten, the flat, merciless thump, thump, thump of vibration that shook the air, reaching into her skull and upsetting her concentration, shaking her heart inside her ribcage. McKay lost her grip on the real world before she got the chance to witness the outcome. She dropped back into the space inside her own head in time to see the last strings of Mike's persona get sucked into the drive. It shut with a sharp snick, like a cigar cutter. That snap freed her. McKay was whole again, standing in the vault of her own mind. She cut the connection to the drive and started shutting down every unnecessary program, feeling quick surges as more and more processing power returned to her control. She opened her eyes and turned her attention back to the carnage in the real world. The room outside was now filled with shattered plastic and toxic smoke from the destruction McKay's volunteer drone had unleashed on its own zombie counterparts before Rose had finally gotten a grip and burned down its operating system. The overlay reached out and connected with the last standing enemy drone, recoiling as it encountered Rose's toxic code, then pushing past and opening a path of attack. McKay managed to force start its maintenance cycle, peeling its armor open and exposing its innards, but it got off a dozen rounds before Rice's stunner fried the now unprotected circuitry. Brighton had put herself between McKay and the drone. The rounds took her in the back and slammed the both of them to the ground. The overlay calculated the force of impact and gave McKay the readouts for Brighton's body armor. It must have hurt. The armor could only disperse so much of the force, but she struggled to her feet anyway. Clumsily, McKay reached out and caught the agent's arm. "Mike is out," she shouted. Rose was still there, prowling around the swim, looking for something else to throw at them as her options vanished one by one. The headset was still open. If Rose came after McKay directly, she could kill her just as surely from within the swim as from without. McKay dropped back into her own head again and started bringing all her defenses online, abandoning her body for Brighton to steer down the hallway. "Rice?" Brighton pulled McKay to her feet, the cables to the canister jerking loose from the headset. She felt it, even barricaded within her own mind. Rose found her as she finished sealing up the firewalls, furiously pounding on the outside of the bunker in her mind. McKay didn't have time to prep for it. The constant back and forth and into and out of the swim was starting to make her sick. She yanked the headset off defensively, the unconscious drive to save herself kicking into gear. "McKay, what's wrong?" Brighton's voice again. "She's just really fucking angry." She had to stall Rose, figure out what she was going to try next. The fact that she'd resorted to the drones, that she was now actively trying to kill them in the real world, that was Brighton and Rice's territory. McKay could ask the warehouse AIs for help, but Rose was taking them over as fast as she could crack their security. Oh, now she's calmed down. McKay felt the pressure of Rose's presence, one step removed now that she wasn't wearing the headset, and jerked her body sideways, physically dodging a blow that slid by in virtual space. "McKay, what the hell?" Brighton reacted to the motion, looking about for an enemy that wasn't there. Well, not in the real world. Even without the headset, Rose could still get at McKay through the swim. She just couldn't get to her outright. It was getting harder for McKay to tell what was real and what was virtual. The overlay flashed a warning, just too late to deflect a tentacle of code that erupted from the floor in front of her. Rose had brought the beast into the system with her, and it was running full tilt. McKay found herself caught in the nasty piece of software's grip, and she had to focus, writing code on the fly to pry it loose. "Time to go." Rice kicked a crate into the hall and cleared a path through the smoking Voomer corpses. Brighton jammed the splat canister into the red backpack and shoved it at McKay. She stayed on her feet, but barely, still trying to pry her mind loose from the beast that now hammered in on the overlay, trying to crash it completely. It took almost all of her focus to keep the malware from simply crushing the overlay's AI out of hand. "Eliza." McKay turned glassy eyes on Rice, who held a finger in front of her face. McKay frowned and focused, the fingertips sliding back and forth across her vision, stuttering, hard to follow. "Nice static," Rice said, and slung McKay's arm across his shoulders. "Serotonin took a dive, right? You've got to disconnect." Neither Brighton nor Rice could see the horror that had McKay in hand. They grabbed her and dragged her body unresisting into the hallway. The lights in the warehouse went out with a bang. What the fuck was that? "Rose is still trying to kill us." McKay managed to get the words out. Another effort, this time a desperate scramble to dig a never-used line of code from her memory. This was a long shot. If the programmer had done a proper rewrite of Spike's code, this wouldn't even work. Every piece of complex AI software had a backdoor, a shutdown code. The beast is just a copy of Spike, corrupted and repurposed, but still just a copy. Let's hope this guy was as lazy as the rest of us. McKay launched her counterattack from the relative safety of the overlay, waiting as the string of code she sent, Spike's unravel code, struck the beast where it lay in wait. The camouflage came undone, sloughing off and flinging outward as the beast rampaged. This time McKay did not react. watching dispassionately as it thrashed about in the swim at her feet. The Unravel had it now. The unique code strings that let any programmer waltz right through its defenses to disassemble it from the inside. McKay got a glimpse of its true nature an instant after the camouflage stripped, and the thing unraveled into random strings of numbers and snippets, a lean, efficient, negative shape in the luminous, ever-moving swim. Then it was gone. The fire doors thudded shut all through the warehouse. Orange and red warning lights split the dark. Abruptly, all of the robots fell silent, went into lockdown mode, tucking in gripper arms and bumpers to keep them safe. Fire alarm? Brighton asked. They passed beyond the broken remains of the combat drones and Voomers and headed out onto the warehouse floor. It's an AI facility, McKay said. Halon gasped for the fire systems. While the AI-driven robots' physical bodies were silent, their programmed minds slipping into the swim, filling the empty conduits. The overlay stirred as the invisible space around them filled with little programs, making linkages here and there. Nothing strenuous, just chatting, talking, making connections, networking. McKay smiled as the AI's sleek otter-like form swam around her, dipping and darting through the swim. It was like a snow day for them, freed of their mechanical bodies until the lockdown was over. Rose had focused all her attention on the security AIs, but the run-of-the-mill service units had all come through unscathed. There was no sign of Rose now. She'd vanished when the lockdown started, kicked out when the warehouse security systems came back online. McKay was vaguely conscious of an interchange between Brighton and Rice. Rebreathers, one of them said. Probably Rice. Halon's inert. We'll suffocate here if we stick around too long. Fine, I'll share. McKay asked the overlay a question, and it fired off a communication to one of the Quicksilver AIs passing in the swim. McKay was conscious of a dull ache, pressure on her skull, and a red-tinged warning flashing in her vision. She ignored it, entranced by the rippling data flowing around her. She thought if she could just time it right, she could touch the swim and join it. No overlay, no headset, just one more push would do it. McKay, are you paying attention? Brighton frowned at her. The overlay said that the AI had agreed to their request. They're going to get us out of here. McKay gestures towards a set of glowing red lights in the dark. Shit, she's not thinking straight. Rice again, irritated, perpetually irritated. One of the small catalog drones unlimbered its legs and came to life. McKay pulled herself free as it approached. It shined its headlight directly into her face and warbled a question. She stared unblinking into the light while the overlay translated the drone's instructions. This way. McKay gestured stiffly and followed the spiderbot into the dark without a backward look. And that's it. There we go.
Yay!
Combat in VR.
That's so cool. And just so you know, we've all been putting our favorite lines in the chat. Well, some of us have. And while Jaymee sneaks around sneakily collecting everybody's books. Thank you so much. And I know that you might have to run off and catch a plane very soon. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So-
I will hang out as long as I can, though.
Awesome. And if I don't see you sneak off, safe travels. And thank you so much for reading.
Of course. And
Yeah.
thank you for inviting me. This is a blast.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's
All
always
right.
good to see you, Kim.
I
And
know,
folks
it's
should
been
really
forever.
Check out Kim's Instagram because Kim does like really fun things with like 3D printing as well and like little electronics.
I'm going to drop the Instagram handle again right there. That's Kim Instagram. So if you want to see how cool it is, come on, go. There it is. Oh, yes. And the chat in Twitch is applauding. Yay.
Yay.
Jaymee, do you have Kim's book to hold up?
I do. This is the book that she just read from. It is not the first book that we published at Tachyon. The first book we published at Tachyon is called Nucleation. I like to call it the industrial, it's the cyberpunk industrial espionage book. And this is also kind of like a cyberpunk industrial espionage book as well. And I just
I
love
may have a
what
type.
Kim does. Yeah, you do. And it's all like cyberpunk. It all has to do with like VR. And I really love the way you explain VR in your books. It makes it so accessible, but in a really fresh way that's not like just harking back to 80s like VR like environments, but kind of like that. So it just makes you like really, really happy. But and also the first lines of your books are always kind of banger. Like
That's a
they're
good
just
trick.
so good. Yeah, like I want Kim to teach a class on how to start novels good. Because
Wouldn't that be interesting to get like a kind of a class, and you would on like novel writing, but you'd get different authors to teach. Like Kimberly is doing this section on how to start a book, and so is going to
Yeah.
Rick Riordan will do how to button up a chapter, and so will do how to tightly plot, how to do a deep character,
Right.
world building, and then like you have a sort of like a whole class, but on all the different sections. Not that there would be an
Yeah.
infinite class. Who are we
It
kidding?
would be fun. Yeah. But also like
Okay.
more people need to buy Kim's books because they are technically like first books in the series. And I was just like, I want to see more of these characters. So
Yeah, that should be our next thing, is like a Tachyon workshop series or something. That'll be hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. So we've seen the book. You have her, Kimberly's Instagram. You have her website. And I should go on to and get the Tachyon website and just keep posting it in there. For those of you who like what you hear and want more of it, there is a way to get it. There's a way to buy it, support these authors, and support your local independent publishing company. We're going to move on to the next reader, who is Auston Habershaw, who is the author of the Saga of the Redeemed series. He has worked as a lifeguard, barista, waiter, QA tester, dog walker, hotel bellhop, pedicab driver, SAT tutor, office drone, and a bunch of other random things. He is now a science fiction and fantasy author writing about the could be and never was, and also teaches composition and literature at MCPHS University in Boston, Massachusetts. You can find him online at aahabershaw.com, which I will drop into the chat. And Auston will read, and then Jaymee's going to hold up his book for you to see. I'm going to mute myself. Auston, take it away.
Hi. I'm Auston Habershaw, as introduced. I'm going to read from actually, it's in the blur. My book, If Wishes Were Retail, which is a comic fantasy about a genie opening a shop in a mall selling wishes for money. I'm going to start with like the third chapter here. Our main character, Alex, has just gotten a job to work for the genie, and she is coming to the mall for her first day of work. The last time Alex had been inside the Wellspring Mall, she may have been 9 years old, going to visit Santa for what turned out to be the last time. She hadn't believed in Santa then, but her father was still invested in the whole thing, so he wanted to prove to her that Santa was real. At that time, her father had been dabbling in sovereign citizenship, which mostly seemed to entail her father bringing a gun everywhere. Like, for instance, in the line to visit Santa, full of mothers and other kids, all of whom Alex had taken upon herself to inform about the lie that was Kris Kringle. Alex wasn't sure what had happened next, but one of the mothers in line saw that her dad had a pistol stuffed into the waistband of his jeans, probably when he was crouching down to try and shut Alex up. And the next thing that had happened was basically a mass panic event as children were scooped up by their mothers and ran for the hills shouting, "Gun, gun, gun!" Her father, assuming they were talking about someone else with a gun, drew his gun to blow away the imaginary gunman, and, well, things unfolded from there. In retrospect, Alex was amazed her father hadn't been shot by the SWAT team that showed up. Anyway, the point was that Alex had remembered the mall as being a lot louder, a lot brighter, and, well, more exciting. Most of the stores now looked like sterile terrariums of weird lifestyles Alex didn't think anyone actually lived. There were young people in cargo shorts on boats, bony European girls having trouble controlling their hair on the beach, men in suits wearing expensive watches. The brands and these storefronts seemed to glide across her notice, barely registering as shops. Some other stores looked like bad ideas launched by reality show contestants. Essential oil emporiums, custom aerial photographer of anonymous tree laden swaths of suburbia, or even put it on t shirts. A full third of the storefronts were obscured behind big blocks of smooth plywood, all painted gray, with signs that said, "Coming soon to Wellspring." But nothing was coming soon, Alex was betting. She was walking down the broad, empty corridors of an empire in decline. The genie had not given Alex any specific indication of where his shop was in the mall. She didn't even exactly know what it was called. So she walked around for a while, scanning storefronts for something that looked likely. It turned out the genie's shop, kiosk really, wasn't called anything at all. It was a drab gray cylinder, barely wide enough to fit 3 people abreast. At one side was mounted an ostentatious throne of what looked like obsidian or some similarly dark rock. The perimeter of that cylinder was a glass display case that was filled with testimonials of satisfied customers. These testimonials were all ancient: scraps of parchment and papyrus, illuminated manuscripts, a clay tablet inscribed with cuneiform. They had beside them little note cards that translated what was written. An Egyptian pharaoh credited the genie with the construction of his pyramid. A 6th century Frankish king explained how the genie had crushed some army. An Abbasid caliph described a golden fountain that would never run dry. The note cards were small and written in an old fashioned calligraphy that Alex had trouble reading. Well, she muttered to herself, I guess I'm actually doing this. On top of the counter was a cash register and a fat scroll, 2 cylinders, the diameter of Alex's legs, mounted on wooden dowels. She was examining this last bit when the genie appeared in a puff of blue smoke. Alex jumped back against the counter. What the? Don't do that! The genie was wearing a leisure suit from the 1970s. White, all rhinestones. The kind of thing Elvis would wear. He looked very serious. You misunderstand our arrangement, Alexandria Delmore. You do not give me commands. I command you. Alex looked him up and down and decided she just couldn't keep it to herself. What are you wearing? The genie smoothed the collar of his rhinestone leisure suit. The attire of your kings, so that my relationship to your people will be clear. The attire of our. Alex stopped herself. For the sake of this job, she'd told herself she'd shut up about stuff like that. Well, she'd try anyway. What do you want me to do? The genie gestured to the throne. I will sit there. As befits my station, you will greet supplicants as they approach and hear their entreaties. Their their wishes, you mean? Just so. Okay, so she'd be getting their wishes and then collecting money. Clear enough. How much for a wish? The genie pointed at the scroll. I have compiled a list of all the wishes I have ever granted and assigned them a price in order to ensure a fair exchange. Alex looked at the huge antique scroll. I don't suppose you arranged them alphabetically? I have not. Alex sighed. Of course not. Still, positive vibes. I'm assuming a limit of 3 per customer. She grinned at her boss. The genie stared at her. Why would you assume that? Alex was suddenly at a loss for words. Like, because you're a genie? And like, so 3 wishes? Isn't that how it works? No, that is not how it works. The genie walked through the counter, through like smoke, and ascended to the throne and sat down. You may begin your duties. Alex jerked her thumb in the direction of the food court. I was just going to get a coffee if that's okay. It is not okay. I am not paying you to drink coffee in a cafe. Dude, I'll bring it back. Do you want anything? The genie seemed perplexed by this. He looked at her, head cocked to one side. You are offering to purchase coffee for me? I mean, I'm sort of assuming you'll pay me back, right? I'm not working at the mall because I'm independently wealthy. Alex stopped. Wait, can't you just like wish us up some coffee? Yes, the genie nodded. Alex waited a few seconds. Um, will you? The genie gripped the armrests of his chair. No. He sounded very firm, almost angry. Okay, well, Alex backed away from the corner. I'll be back in 5, okay? It was a short walk to the food court. 4 of the 5 storefronts in the little semicircular alcove were closed, but the 5th, Speed Java, was open and had a line of mall employees waiting for their morning jolt. Alex was the only one not wearing some kind of uniform. When she got there, a bunch of people in polo shirts turned and stared at her in her ripped jeans, combat boots, and army jacket. The girl at the back, a blonde with artificially tanned skin wearing short shorts and a crop top, recoiled from her like she was covered in slime. Oh my God, where do you work? Alex smiled sweetly. You're Nightmare's Bunny. The girl rolled her eyes. My name isn't Bunny. Alex turned her thoughts to her new boss. If you were a genie and you wanted coffee, why wouldn't you just wish yourself up a coffee? What was with the Elvis suit? She knew this was going to be weird, but maybe she was underestimating just how weird it could get. She thought of her idiot family, her father's absurd paranoia, her mother's rages and terrors, of her brother Mark lighting his tank top on fire with a Roman candle and then trying to put it out with a bottle of whiskey. She thought of that stack of college applications in her room, all filled out and ready to go. She thought of becoming the valued employee of an all powerful genie. It would all be worth it. She could handle it. But could she? By the time she got to the front of the line, she felt a little tickle in her stomach that she began to identify as unease, maybe even fear. She was working with a being beyond all mortal control. What if somebody wished for something crazy? Her mind started to list off the terrible things that could be wished for. I wish for my ex-girlfriend would just die already. I wish gay people would disappear. I wish the earth really was flat. She thought about her dad, what her crazy, irresponsible conspiracy theorist dad would wish for. It made her shudder. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Genies have rules. They have standards. They have something. She hurried back to the kiosk with her coffee, planning to take a good hard look at that pricing guide. When she got there, she climbed over the counter and went straight to the fat scroll. The genie seemed not to notice she had returned. The first thing on the list was goats, 5 pieces of silver per herd. The second thing was a soaking rain over one's fields, 50 pieces of silver. She skimmed the list, scrolling down. A bountiful harvest, protection from smallpox, a dog of pure gold, hemorrhoids to win enemies, fair winds for sailing, a flock of 1,000 songbirds. Alex said, who would want 50 swift horses? The Emperor of China, the genie said from his throne above her. He was most pleased. I think that shall be a wish frequently in demand. That's a lot of horses, indeed. The genie supplied no further instructions regarding her duties. Ironically, Alex was now the Christmas elf to the genie's Santa. Collect the money, relay the wish, and then it would be granted. Alex wondered if there was going to be any sitting on laps involved. She hoped not. It was hard to tell when or if people started showing up to the mall since they were so far from the main entrances. The closest department store had once been a J.C. Penney and was now closed, meaning nobody was coming in their side. Gradually, senior citizens and women with strollers trickled by in singles or pairs. Most of them gave the kiosk scarcely a glance. Those who did look caught the sight of the genie, his massive arms folded and his eyes smoldering, and hurried away. Across from them, the woman in the Better Body outlet arranged a scenic display of pastel colored bath salts in a rack by the entrance to her store. She kept giving the genie dirty looks and then began stringing dream catchers all around the doorway. An hour passed. Alex kept scrolling through the massive pricing guide. Some of the entries were legitimately hilarious. A rooster that curses like a sailor. And others were, well, problematic. Transport a marriage bed into your home, complete with bride. When she got to 50 slaves, she had to say something. You, you, you know, some of these wishes are illegal, right? Like, if anybody wishes for this, they should legit go to prison. The genie looked down at her. What do you mean? I mean that it's illegal to own slaves, she pointed at the entry. The genie stroked his smoky beard. Of this I was not aware. Truly, one man may not own the freedom of another? Of course not. Not even if they sell their freedom? Why would anyone do that? Alex asked. In exchange for their miserable lives, for instance, the genie said. He sounded as though he were explaining something simple that she should have learned already. Yeah, no, illegal. What if they are captured in battle? No. What if they worship unclean gods or perhaps are fornicators with goats? Are you kidding me right now? Alex didn't know if that was racist or something, but it sounded suspiciously like something her father would say, and so she wasn't a fan. Are you telling me there is no means by which a person can be compelled to obey another against their will? Other than uh, prison? No. So be it, the genie boomed. He pointed at the scroll. You will cross out 50 slaves and replace it with imprison 50 men. Satisfied, you miserable shrew of a girl? Alex clenched her teeth. Remember the money. Remember the money. She started hunting around for a permanent marker in the kiosk. There were none, because of course there weren't. At a loss for what to do, and not wanting to talk to her boss again, she slipped the dark lipstick out of her jacket pocket and crossed out slaves. Then she shuffled the scroll so that somebody wasn't likely to come across that particular wish. Your attention, please. Alex looked up to see a big fleshy white guy in a mall security uniform and a stupid-looking mustache standing across the counter. He was talking to both of them, sort of, but mostly Alex, since she was closest. He looked at the genie, who wasn't paying attention, then back to the mall cop. Hi! He was standing on a sun-faded, brittle-looking Segway scooter and peering down at a clipboard. Yeah, you guys didn't sign a lease. Alex called over his shoulder. Oh, boss, do you want to handle this? The genie looked down at them. Does this wretch seek to make a wish? The mall cop produced a pained smile. No, see, you're not on the list, buddy. You can't be here. The genie looked nonplussed. What is your name? Uh, Frank. Frank pointed to his name tag, which read Officer Coop. And who are you, Officer Coop Frank, to deny me space in this marketplace? It started to dawn on Frank who or what he was talking to. Alex watched it happen almost in slow motion. 1 second, this fat dude all bored and calm, and the next second, he was wide-eyed and alert. Alex had guessed at this point the guy would either back off or double down. Frank chose double down. You need to pay to sell here, Aladdin. Bold choice, dude, Alex muttered. Why must I pay? Asked the genie. Because that's how it's done, you stupid, Frank sputtered. He tapped a fat finger on the clipboard. You aren't on the list. The genie snapped his fingers. Review your list again, Officer Coop Frank. Frank started to snarl, then looked at his clipboard. Hey, you can't do that. You're insolent, the genie said. Begone. Alex elected to move out from between the genie and the man on the scooter. Hey, let's all calm down, okay? Maybe if you just give us a rental application or something, and we can get this all sorted out. You're a tough guy, huh? Frank said. Maybe you won't be so tough when I call the cops on you, will you? Huh? He plucked a cheap walkie-talkie off his belt. Dude, Alex said, just chill, okay? He's a genie. He doesn't know how it all works. Frank pointed a finger in her face. You shut up. Genie rose from his throat. Enough. And then Frank was gone. And in his place was a beautiful songbird, all blue and yellow plumage, perched on the handlebars of a Segway. Frank's clipboard and walkie-talkie clattered to the floor. Alex gasped. Holy shit, you didn't. Am I to endure such abuse? The genie pointed to where Frank had been. The bird was twittering and screeching. It took a little hop and landed on the floor. If I am to be irritated by such a fool, the genie added, it may as well be done with a more pleasing sound. Alex climbed over the counter. The bird squeaked and hopped away from her. Its little body was trembling. Change him back. Change him back. Oh, my God. Genie folded his arms and sat down. No. Alex took off her jacket. This was a crime, right? Turning people into a bird had to be a crime. Holy shit, holy shit. She tried to keep her voice calm. Hey, Frank, it's okay, buddy. I got you, okay? It's gonna be okay. She threw the coat over the bird's head. The bird, Frank, held perfectly still. Alex knelt and gently scooped him up. She brought the bundle back to the counter. Are you out of your goddamn mind? The genie raised one smoky eyebrow at her. You can't turn random people into animals. You're going to get in trouble. The genie shrugged. The leisure suit tore at the shoulder as the result of the gesture. There is nothing they can do to me. No mortal man can oppose me, nor human champion is my equal. If they come for me, I shall slay them with as little trouble as I transform that insolent, torpid wretch into a beautiful songbird. Alex looked around the mall. The lady in the Better Body outlet squeaked and ducked behind her cash register. If Alex didn't fix this, it was going to be the shortest job she's ever had. Look, do you actually want to run a business here in the mall? The genie frowned. This is obvious, of course. Okay, then you need to play by the mall's rules, right? If you turn this whole place into a battlefield, then nobody is going to visit your business. If you want to do this, you got to turn this guy back into a guy and apologize, and then you need to get a rental application or whatever from mall management. The genie looked at her with those light bulb eyes for a long moment. You are very knowledgeable in these things, Alexandria Delmore. Very well. I shall do as you suggest. And suddenly, Frank was sitting on the counter of the kiosk, Alex's army jacket over his head. He yanked it off and rolled backwards, landing on the floor with a hard thump. Ah! Ah! The genie extended a magnanimous hand. I render my apologies unto you, Officer Coop Frank. I have handled you roughly and not in keeping with your customs. Frank rose unsteadily to his feet, staring at his hands. Ah! In order to make restitution for my insult, I offer you one coupon for a wish at half price. The genie reached solemnly over to a roll of paper coupons that had not been there before, detached one carefully along the perforations, and held it out to Frank. Frank just ran away screaming, I'm a man! I'm a man! Ah! Alex felt her pulse rate slow, but not by much. You really aren't a people person, are you? And that's that.
Bravo. Oh, we all had so much fun listening to that. Oh my gosh. I just Jaymee doesn't have a copy with the cover on, so I dropped in the chat just so you know, I dropped the link to that book right in the chat. I'm going to do it again because the cover's really funny and it really matches the tone of what you just read, and I want everybody to see it.
It was also completely designed by Elizabeth Story.
Yay, Elizabeth!
It's a great cover. It's a great
Elizabeth's cover. like normal drawing style. And so we're like, oh, we finally have a project that fits her regular actual style of art style.
It's so fun. Okay, I will move on to our next reader. Just keep it going, keep it flowing. So I would say, Jaymee, get ready. The cover for Naseem Jamnia's book.
Oh.
Naseem is the Judith A. Markowitz Award-winning and astounding award-nominated author of The Bruising of Kilwa, which was a finalist for the IAFA Crawford, Locus, and World Fantasy Awards. Their middle-grade horror debut, The Glade, released this past May from Aladdin, an imprint of Simon & Schuster. An Iranian Chicagoan, community writing educator, and pro-library activist, Naseem lives outside Reno, Nevada with their geologist husband and 4 furred creatures. Take it away, Naseem.
Yay, thank you all so much for coming to celebrate Tachyon's 30th birthday, and thank you so much, Claire and Carlos, for hosting this. I had sent this updated bio, and I'm like, man, I should have done a more interesting bio because the other 2 bios were much more interesting. So I'm going to be reading from The Bruising of Kilwa, which is a slice of life novella set in a queer normative Persian-inspired fantasy world. It follows a 30-year-old non-binary refugee healer named Firuz, who has secret and taboo blood magic. And at the early point in this book, Firuz has been working at a free clinic for a few months during both a migrant and public health crisis with their mentor, Kofi. So just a heads up that there is mentions of plague and pandemic in here, and there's also quite a bit of medical gore. The heat from the brick oven tucked in the alleyway danced on Firuz's skin. Mask and gloves in place, they mouthed the traditional send-off before heaving the body into the waiting flames. It was not a healer's job to dispose of the dead, but over the past few weeks, the distinction between mortuary and clinic had, for these purposes, faded. They snapped off their gloves and masks and tossed those into the fire, too, before shutting the oven door. "That's the last of them, Kofi Khan," they called when they returned inside. "We can close up now." Not quite. The curtain leading to the examination rooms pulled back, and Kofi poked his head out. "Come back here for a moment." "What's going on?" "We have a visitor." In the furthest room, where they usually stored equipment and mixed treatments, stood a familiar, grim-faced mortician. Hair shorn since the last time Firuz had seen her, Mortician Malika had worked closely with Firuz over the weeks, as Kofi's was the closest clinic, whose healers don't have asses for brains. She also once told Firuz she worked with the dead because she wanted to avoid dealing with the complaints of the living. The plague had turned everything on its head. "Malika Khan, what brings you here?" Firuz followed her gaze to the raised sheet stretched over an examination bed that usually did not reside there. "Is that a person?" "Technically a corpse." She crossed her arms. "I was hoping an adept might make sense of this." "Not another plague victim, then?" "If it is, then the plague has changed and we're mucked." Despite the progress made over the last many months, getting people from all parts of the city access to clean water, a volunteer band of magic users who went through the streets and destroyed any waste that might contribute to disease, a recent donation by one of the wealthy merchant families of much-needed food, up the death toll still ticked. If more migrants arrived from Delmoon, the city would be in even more trouble, especially if the ancient Aziza Kiwabi Academy continued to oppose their entry on the grounds of public health. Firuz grabbed the gloves Kofi offered, although he wasn't wearing any. "Kofi Khan?" "We already talked about it." As was his habit, Kofi motioned with his chin to Malika. "I did a preliminary exam, and I don't want to bias either of us. Let's hear what you see." Firuz's hand hesitated by a mask. 8 months working with Kofi, and Firuz had learned it was safe to relax around him. During their training in Delmoon, they'd been subjected to constant tests of skill, but Kofi trusted Firuz. He insisted they were well-trained, needed only experience to call themselves a full healer. But something about this felt off. Perhaps it was the furrow in Kofi's brow, or the way he wouldn't look directly at the corpse, but instead focused on his dark hands. Well, regardless, Firuz's duty lay with the person awaiting them, living or dead. After snapping on the mask, they folded the sheet away from the corpse's face. "I take it I should not ask what's unusual about this one." Seemed normal enough. They fingered the sagging jaw, the bloated cheeks, before pulling the sheet further down. Malika pulled up her own mask from around her neck for sake of the imminent smell. "I can tell you it's the 4th one in this state. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." The stomach, already green with the telling patch of decay, distended around their touch. Gases expelled into the air, smelling of sulfurous rotten eggs and sun-heated garbage. Firuz was familiar with decayed bodies along with live ones. They didn't need to access the magic in their veins to feel something about this one was very, very wrong. Under normal circumstances, the gut spilled into the blood, consumed the body from the inside out. The marrow no longer cranked out new life, and over time, only bones remained. The marrow here was doing something, even though it should have long been still. How long has this one been dead? Fidus retrieved surgical tools. The putridity, or rather the lack of it after the initial discharge, concerned them. Malika bounced a fist against her thigh. 1 week. Fidus's head snapped up. Excuse me? That's why I brought it here. At 1 week, the body should have been well into decay, its odor a mix of wet rot to ripe fruit and rancid meat. The initial gases had resembled that bouquet of scents, but there was no real skin slippage as Fidus pinched the arm, no telltale yellow marbling. It was as though the body had begun its decay, then stopped, or had picked parts of the process to continue the way a farmer picked dates. Their blades slid through the chest like a ripe mango, the skin curling as the pressure released. Fidus suppressed a gag. The body was rotting, all right, although the inside didn't mirror the internal goo. Fidus wiped down the flat bone connecting the ribs before tapping it, but did not hear the expected hollowish ring. Kofi Khan, can you? Kofi already held up the handsaw. You suspect the marrow? Maybe. Something is stopping full putrefaction. They did not elaborate, did not want to utter the fears nipping at the small of their back. In normal circumstances, bones were home to spongy crisscrosses of red or yellow fibers, the site of blood-making marrow. As a person aged, so too did the composition of these fibers change. Yet those here were dense, resembling a newborn babe's. A chunk of sternum in hand, Fidus stepped to the magnifying lens set on the back counter, but there was a more precise way to puzzle out what was happening. With their back to the others, they freed the tip of the needle sewn in their sleeve and pressed it into their wrist until a drop of blood welled up. Blood would tell, as it always did. Red smeared against white, they used the energy surging through their veins to explore the bone's makeup. The magic allowed them to feel the internal structure, run invisible hands along the matrix inside. The blood still present felt wrong, lacking something, and the bone was too thin, as if it eroded away. And the marrow? Most of it was silent, but a part of it thrummed, even now trying to create without the prerequisite ingredients. Which was impossible. The person was dead, literally cut open by Fidus's own hands. Still, the bone whispered its life, its desire to create. No, there was something or someone behind this, playing with bodies with a carelessness or disregard that twisted Fidus's insides. What did you feel when you checked? They asked. Kofi moved one hand over the open chest cavity. The gooey innard shifted in tandem. Viscous like it should be, no stirring of the muscles, dead, but not yet fully decayed. Malika tapped her toes in a rhythm Fidus could almost place. So, any thoughts? Some kind of preservation spell with maybe food as the medium. The lies slipped out as they dumped their tools in a bucket and reached for the mixture of herbs bundled for a cleansing solution. I'd burn them as they come in and not worry about it. We all have enough on our plates as it is. Malika sighed. Guess that's all we can do. Keep watch for me, will you? I want to monitor the situation. Of course. The truth was, thought Fidus as they washed their hands, this was the work of the most incompetent blood magic user they had ever seen. Thank you.
It's so juicy. I love it so much. It's great. Ugh. And it's got a great cover. Jaymee gave me the link.
Yeah,
I dropped it in
I
the
have
chat.
this one, and not only does it have a great cover, it's also got some incredible interior.
I'm obsessed with the book layout. It's so incredible.
Oh, how
And
beautiful.
like because it's a novella, so like Elizabeth found space to do things like this.
Oh, how gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so pretty. And like
And it's another Elizabeth story. She does that design
yes,
and
it's
cover
another
and everything.
Elizabeth story interior. Everyone
Oh,
should be fans
wow.
of Elizabeth. Yeah.
Does
like,
Elizabeth have an Instagram to follow too? Because I should follow her.
Elizabeth does. Elizabeth is Hyperbolic Telly on Instagram.
Hyperbolic Telly. All right, I'll find her.
Yeah.
But
However, Elizabeth also runs the Tachyon Pub Instagram. So a lot of like the cute little bookstagram photos that you see on Instagram are all like Elizabeth just kind of taking a book and being all like, we haven't featured this book in a while. I'm just gonna walk around my neighborhood and like feature it somewhere.
That's so cute. I do follow Tachyon, so I should drop at least the Tachyon Instagram into the chat too. It is the hour of like cat crying mournfully and zoomies at the same time. Okay, I will look for the Tachyon thing, but first I'm going to introduce our next reader, who randomly chosen from my list is Nebula, Locus, and Sturgeon Award-winning author Samantha Mills has published a dozen short stories since 2018. Mills has also been nominated for the Pushcart Prize. Her short fiction has appeared in Uncanny Magazine, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Strange Horizons, Escape Pod, and others. She has a master's degree in information and library science, and she is a trained archivist focusing on helping local historical societies and research libraries. I love an archivist. Mills lives in Southern California. The Wings Upon Her Back is her debut novel. Ah, the debut novelist. All right, Samantha, I'm going to mute myself. You take it away.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, this is my debut novel that was picked up by Tachyon. It is about the slippery slope to fascism and the difficulty of getting back out again once it has taken root. The story is told in two timelines. It opens when the main character, a winged warrior named Zemlai, is stripped of her mechanical wings, which she had gone to great lengths to earn in the first place. I'm going to read from chapter 3. This is the first time we go back to the past to meet her as a child and try to figure out how she got herself in this situation. Long before the sky was cut by the fearsome warrior winged Zemlai, there was only the student, Milar Zemlai, known to her loved ones as Xenia. Xenia was a precocious child. Her parents would have accepted nothing less. She was also prone to mischief, and shortly after her 8th birthday, she jumped from the Ariozavet Bridge with nothing but a bit of wood and paper on her back. It was the greatest moment of her young life. The night before the bridge incident, Xenia sat on a rug in her mother's study with her younger brother, Niklaus. The siblings were only 1 year apart, dark-haired and round-faced, a matched pair, inseparable. Their parents were always busy with research projects of their own, but if the children were very quiet and very good, and there was time remaining before they were sent to bed, they'd be told a story. Niklaus was working his way through a dog-eared history book, while Xenia pretended to do math. A thin thread of tension stretched between them, strengthened by furtive glances at the clock that ticked so ominously on the opposite wall. They both longed for attention, and they both knew how easily a plea for more could backfire in stern lectures about learning to entertain oneself. When their mother cleared her throat, they snapped their book shut and spun to face her, and Natulia laughed at their enthusiasm. "I'm sorry, children. It's been another long evening, hasn't it?" she said. "Why don't you come here and I'll tell you what I'm working on." Xenia darted behind the enormous desk first, peering at the familiar swirl of her mother's handwriting on 3 tidy stacks of cream-colored paper. "A new book?" she asked. Natulia smiled. "A supplement to a volume of Lemaine. I'm up to the last stand of St. Redesta." "The giant bird!" Niklaus exclaimed, poking his head around Xenia's arm. "Yes," Natulia said dryly, "the giant bird." She stood up, wafting the scents of ink and forgotten tea, and pointed to the mural painted on the wall behind her desk. It was Redesta in cartographic caricature. There the mountains Kelior in thick strokes of ochre, and here the city, safely nestled in their shadow, sketched in all the colors the land could produce. Natulia picked up a sheet of paper and read, "The 5 gods have slumbered for many years, each in their own heaven, but they were awake once, and in their wakefulness they bestowed remarkable technologies on humankind. Each of them whispered secrets to their chosen representatives, for they know that the greatest sign of our humanity is our constant struggle for perfection." Xenia ran her fingertips over a tiny figure standing atop the tallest mountains in the mural, a slash of red and silver with its arms upraised to the sky. "Our ancestors understood the magnitude of these blessings," Natulia continued. "They strove to keep them secret from the warmongering nations beyond the mountains, but knowledge exists to be spread, and so it did. The people of Rava State were fiercely jealous and descended upon the infant settlement. It was Saint Redesda who brought everyone together. The fighters and farmers, the engineers and scholars, the workers, to defend this grand experiment, a city built to reach the heavens. Above the scarlet blur of a soon-to-be saint was a winged beast in brown and gray, an enormous rook, the last of the mountain birds and their enemies' greatest hope of breaking the city's defenses. It snatched up Saint Redesda during an impassioned speech to her army just before the Battle of Three Gates. She killed the beast mid-flight, then fell to her death. The war was won, the saint lost, and Redesda, the city-state, officially born. It is our duty to protect this city, Natulia concluded. Our joint mission to guard the knowledge that has been entrusted to us, to better ourselves, both physically and intellectually, in pursuit of our ideals. Niklaus was enraptured, as always, by the little group of scholars with their arms full of books, standing next to a partially built tower Zealand. But Xenia wasn't interested in taking robes. She was staring at the top of the mural, at the figure she had studied so many times on these long, lonely evenings while she kept quiet and did not interrupt her mother's work. The winged, flying fierce and true over the border, sketched in sparkling copper paint. And just like that, Xenia had a fantastic idea. She enlisted Niklaus the next day, under cover of a joint expedition to study the sod-covered roofs of Zavet district for a botany project. I'm not sure about these numbers, little Niklaus said, squinting at the diagram Xenia had circled in her math book. It's all about ratios, Xenia insisted. We scale it up. This is a kite, he said doubtfully. Why do you think I'm making two? This bit of brilliance could not be argued with, and they spent the next hour measuring and cutting a pile of wooden rods that Xenia had smuggled out from their father's garden shed. A great deal of string, glue, and waxed paper later, Xenia had her first set of wings. Niklaus's concern returned when it came time to tie Xenia's arms into place, but he offered his own solution. You had better try from higher up, or the wind won't catch. They crept onto the Ariozavet bridge after the lunch hour, when all nearby adults were safely confined to their factories or offices. Xenia climbed onto the railing, awkward in her poorly thought-out personal engineering design, while Niklaus stood ready with a pocket watch to time the gentle descent they felt certain was about to occur. Xenia jumped. There was a brief moment when the air hit her face and the world went still, and she was weightless, unstoppable. The cobblestones were far below, and her eyes were filled with clouds. She crashed, of course, one broken leg, and lucky it wasn't anything worse. A hectic scene followed, fueled by her own pain and her little brother's panic. She ripped off her crumpled wings and ordered Niklaus to shove them into the trash beneath the bridge, and then she swore him to secrecy before he ran for help, a pact he gladly took to forsake his part in the whole mess. But that came after. For one moment before the crash, she'd had the sky, and her fate was sealed. One day, Xenia was going to fly.
Ah, what that's so full of adrenaline and that feeling.
And that's just the start.
Show us, Jaymee. Show us the cover.
Here it is. I'm also pleased to say that this is a World Fantasy Award finalist.
Woo!
Yeah.
That is so great.
Yep, and Sam's also gonna be at the in-person Tachyon anniversary party at the San Francisco Public Library. I think Jill will drop a link in the comments of the Twitch channel.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it is on the it is this Saturday.
Sunday.
Sunday. Oh, it is Sunday. Okay, from 12 o'clock.
So if anybody in the chat, or if you're watching afterward, or if you're in the San Francisco, you said, area, there's an in-person Tachyon event. I'm sure that the Tachyon website has more about that. And if there is a link to something, I'm sure somebody will tell me, and I can put it in the chat for you. Okay. I think that the next person should be Josh Rountree, who is a novelist and short story writer who writes across multiple genres but focuses mostly on horror and dark fantasy. His novel, it's a great title, The Legend of Charlie Fish, released by Tachyon Publications to wide acclaim in 2023, was selected for the Locus recommended reading list and named one of Los Angeles Public Library's best books of the year. More than 70 of Rountree's short stories have been published in a variety of venues, including Deadlands, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Bourbon Pen, very cool, Realms of Fantasy, Pseudopod, Weird Horror, and the year's best dark fantasy and horror. Several collections of his short fiction have been published. Most recently, another great title, Death Aesthetic. Rountree lives in the greater Austin, Texas metropolitan area with his lovely wife of many years and a pair of half-feral dogs that command his obedience. I am going to mute myself and Josh, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am super excited to be here. I appreciate being asked to be a part of this. What I'm going to read from today is my new Tachyon novel, The Unkillable Frank Lightning. This is sort of set in the same world as Charlie Fish, but it is a standalone book. This is basically a retelling of Frankenstein set in the Old West. And I'm going to read from just the very first section of the first chapter. And this is from the point of view of Dr. Catherine Coleridge. She is my Dr. Frankenstein stand-in for this. And she's awesome. So. And I do have some cool lightning bolts inside there for talking design elements on these books. It's super rad. So this section is called Texas on a Fast Train from the Arkansas Woods to Dallas, Texas, spring 1905. I never imagined myself the sort of woman to throw in with a pair of killers, but Frank's death unmoored me from the stable life I'd known, and I'd spent the ensuing years shedding every trace of civility and decorum that my society parents had bred into me. The Sioux arrows that killed Frank stole my life as well, and yet I couldn't allow simple human grief to excuse my actions in the wake of his death, or to forgive the life I'd lived since then. Everyone loses people they love. Most of them, however, consign those souls to eternity. They mourn and move on. They don't lose themselves in their own carefully crafted afterlives, and they certainly don't summon their husbands back from the dead. I have made mistakes that can't be forgiven. We rode a train to Texas, a place I've never been, and one I had no desire to visit. In my imagination, Texas was a hard, unforgiving vista of rock and fallow earth, a land that celebrated horse thieves and murderers and anyone else seeking asylum from the civilized world. The prospect of Texas thrilled my wicked companions, and that was enough to turn me off the place. I considered Texas might be my own personal hell and knew it was better than I deserved. Are you comfortable, Dr. Coleridge? Aubrey Dawson sat beside me. The train shuddered and rocked, carved a straight line through a forest of towering Arkansas pines and clawing cedars that seemed to suck all the oxygen from the train car. The air was moist and hot and smelled like decay. Sunlight was scarce and shadows blossomed. I longed for the trees to vanish and the plains to open wide before us so I might breathe again. Aubrey suffered no such claustrophobia. He sat by the window, eternally smiling, like he shared some secret with the forest that the rest of us would never understand. Despite the heat, he kept his blue jacket buttoned tight over his waistcoat and his gray felt hat tipped back at the perfect rakish angle. He was dangerously handsome with his beard clipped neat and his eyes like cold blue gemstones. He was mannered and at times pleasant, but despite his best efforts, the low man inside him peered out from time to time, revealing the unsavory aspects of his nature. Yes, I'm quite fine, Aubrey, I said. Offer you a drink? Aubrey withdrew a tin flask from his pocket and waved it in my direction. I had become quite familiar with that flask in our travels and was grateful for the offer. Given free rein, I'd drink the whole thing in a series of furious swallows, but like Aubrey, there were aspects of myself that I preferred to keep hidden when possible. Just a sip, I guess. Aubrey handed me the flask, and I took a bit more than a sip. I like a woman who'll have a nip of whiskey now and again. He retrieved his flask from my reluctant hand, took a drink, and returned it to his pocket. And I like men who don't comment on my base proclivities. I suppose I'm destined for disappointment. Nothing wrong with enjoying yourself, he said. I never said I liked it. I was thirsty. We're all of us thirsty, all the time, it seems. I liked you better when you kept quiet, I said. That drew laughter from the seat across the aisle. Aubrey's brother, Seth, lounged with his hat down over his eyes, but he had obviously been following our conversation. The Dawson brothers claimed to be twins, but there appeared little relation between them. Aubrey enjoyed his finery, but Seth's black coat was disheveled and stashed in the seat beside him, his shirt untucked except where it would interfere with his holster. Aubrey chose a particular cologne that he mail ordered from Boston, and he existed in a fog of sage and sandalwood, while Seth smelled only of his unwashed body and often of whiskey. Having spent the last week in their company, I was convinced the Creator had doled out all the manners and good looks in the family to Aubrey and had left Seth begging for scraps. Despite that, Seth seemed always in good humor, and I'd yet to experience his shadow side, though I suspected that was at least one quality he shared with his brother. Aubrey's usually the quiet sort, said Seth. You must bring out the talker in him. He's often too reserved for his own good. I'll admit, it's a character flaw I can't overcome. I suppose it's not the talking I mind, I said. It's what you have to say. Seth laughed all the harder, and Aubrey didn't let his smile slip for a second. Under other circumstances, I might not have felt comfortable being so bold in their company. Might, in fact, have feared for my life. But I'd paid them $500 each before our departure, and I'd promised to double that amount upon our return to St. Louis, a hedge against them deciding to take my money and leave unfinished the job for which I'd hired them. So, for no other reason than simple greed, I believed they'd endure a measure of my unpleasant personality, my ribbing, and my naked disdain. I was without love or happiness and rarely chased those things anymore, but I had plenty of money, and that was enough to keep a person moving forward through life if they were skilled enough at self-deception to pretend all those other things didn't matter. Aubrey went back to looking out the window, kept his palms rested on his pistol as he always did. I reminded myself again, these were not my friends. They were a hard pair, alleged killers, and they'd have no problem burying me too, if circumstances demanded. Thankfully, I was years past caring what became of me. I'd like another drink, I said. I'm sure you would, said Aubrey. Can I have another is what I'm asking. Well, as long as you're asking nice. This time I took the flask and I drained it. I did my best to wait a while between sips, to pretend there was no urgency in my gut that demanded to be sated. I disguised myself as a proper lady with my bustle in place and my corset drawn tight as a clenched fist around my midsection. My forest green hat matched my dress. I kept it fastened to my head with a fat ribbon. My graying chestnut hair was knotted up beneath it. But I could only play at being the person I used to be so much. I ignored Aubrey's satisfied look when I handed him the empty flask. I closed my eyes and enjoyed the swimmy feeling in my head as the liquor sought out my bloodstream. Despite my efforts, Aubrey and Seth had figured out exactly the person I was, and I wasn't sure why I continued to put on airs. I lazed in the seat for a long time. Maybe I slept. The motion of the train became a steady comfort, and as rain began to patter against the top of the car, I experienced dreams or visions. It was hard for me to tell which anymore. Summoning my husband's soul back into his body had required me to reach my mind to a darker corner of reality, and while doing so, I had disturbed something that had haunted me through the intervening years. White as the face of the moon and just as featureless, slender as a willow tree with limbs that stretched and flowed like milky blood through the veins of the world. The creature lived in my dreams and in the periphery of my waking hours, visible in the silvery reflection of old mirrors and coiling through the bustle of crowded streets, never revealing itself in full, but always haunting me. No matter how much whiskey, no matter how powerful the dose of laudanum, it remained a near constant companion, and the only explanation I could surmise was that I'd awoken some guardian of the afterlife, and it would not sleep again until I'd made some sort of amends. It had taken a long time to work up to what needed to be done, but now that I had, I would not allow myself to be deterred. There you go.
Uh-oh. It's like you took us right up to the cliff like at midnight and you're looking down and you're like, uh-oh, I can't see it, but I know the cliff goes down from here.
And then a whole lot of other stuff happens.
And then can you hold up the cover close to the
Yeah, it's so rad. It's like nice and spooky and the unkillable Frank Lightning.
I just love it. I posted a link to that. I didn't because Jaymee said that she didn't have the cover for that one. I was going to do. I was like, it's kind of like this.
Exactly.
If it was a skeleton. I'm so glad you had a copy. Oh, yeah, and again, a great title. The Unkillable Frank Lightning just kills me. So good. Oh, that was lovely. Thank you so much, Josh. Oh, fabulous. Jaymee, anything you want to say? You want to hold up the other that you had the Legend of?
I actually have the other book, The Legend of Charlie Fish, and this one was not done by Elizabeth Storer. This was done by John Coulthard, because we thought that John would be able to kind of like get at the kind of there was a vibe to it.
There's
that
a
we thought
big
John would
vibe.
be perfect for, right? So I really like that this cover too. Let me show you this silhouette inside interior.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cool.
And yeah, so I did not edit this one. I didn't edit the Unkillable Frank Lightning either. That was done by Rick Claw. But I did like listen to this in that submission stage.
Yep.
And I distinctly remember I was playing like a phone game and I was listening to this and I just kind of stayed in that same level because I just needed to like listen to this in one sitting, even through the robot voice. And I was just like, well, clearly I need to like reread this on paper because if I am like hooked on to this writing even through a robot voice, then it's gonna be super special. And I'm really glad we did it.
Josh, is there an audiobook of either of them?
No, there are not audiobooks. There's paperback and ebook of both, but we don't have an audiobook.
Well, I think that from what Jaymee said, that maybe that would be a fun project for the future to crowdfund for something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is like the first time I'm hearing Josh read too, and I just love like your writing is so atmospheric already, and like your accent just adds to it. I'm like, oh, this is so great. This is
Thank you so much.
Experience.
Okay, well, we'll move on because we have 3 more readers, all adorable, all geniuses, and all wonderful. And the next is Mia Tsai, who is a Taiwanese-American author of speculative fiction. She lives in Atlanta with her family, and when not writing, is a hype woman for her orchids and a devoted cat gopher. Her favorite things include music of all kinds, really, truly, and taking long trips with nothing but the open road and a saucy rhythm section. She has been quoted in Glamour once. In other lives, she is a professional editor, photographer, and musician. Mia is on Twitter at It's a Mia, and on Instagram at mia.tsai.books. I will drop those right into the chat. I'm going to mute myself, and Mia, please take it away.
Okay, if you can figure out the various anagrams that are my blue sky name, then you get a kudos from me. This is Bitter Medicine, not for something completely different. This is a contemporary fantasy romance. So imagine, if you will, you are Elle, you are a 124-year-old shut-in descendant of the god of medicine, the Chinese god of medicine, and the guy you sort of have a crush on but are convinced that he doesn't like you back just showed up at your door. All right, he's already quite handsome, but tuxedo. Luke's on her doorstep in a tuxedo. Elle files the information away for later, so she can react properly to it. Meanwhile, he's still at her door and she has to answer it. If she sprints, she'll lose whatever friendly business owner dignity she has. She settles for speed walking to the front, unlocking the door, and yanking it open. Now that she's up close and personal, she sees that Luke is a living magazine spread, wearing an expensive tuxedo, fitted to every gorgeous inch of him. Oh, skies, he's too handsome. She doesn't know where to put her eyes. His shoes, his face, his crotch. No, not his crotch. She fixes her gaze on Luke's collar. That seems safe enough. Hi! A giant goofy grin plasters itself to her face. So much for dignity. She clings to the door as if her sanity depends on it. If she lets go, she might have a sartorially induced meltdown. Okay, hi, hello. Wow, How's it going? I wasn't expecting you until next week. Did I miss a date or something? Hello, he replies. No, you haven't missed anything. Oh. Somewhere in the world, a trombone goes womp womp. I'm so sorry for ignoring you, but sometimes customers think, that saying, the customer is always right. They think because I'm still here, it means I'm going to help them, which is totally wrong, of course. What are boundaries, And Elle exhales, shaky, her cheeks heating. The air shimmers in front of her, but she snuffs her pyrokinetics out before she can light Luke's tuxedo on fire. That's got to be worth at least 2 months of take-home pay. That didn't go well at all. Can we try that again? The saying hi thing? Luke's smile broadens, becoming a grin. Only the saying hi thing? Oh, he's gonna make fun of her, is he? She deserves it. I'd like a redo if that's okay by you. She drops her eyes to the floor. That will be fine. I'm here regardless. Okay, good. Thanks. Let's try that again. Elle straight arms the door shut and locks it, turning away. Luke bursts into laughter. Elle ignores him, marshaling her shit so she can get it together. She's in a situation like the thief with the bell, except with vision instead of hearing. If she can't see him, then, logically, he can't see her through an 8-foot-tall glass door. Elle nods to herself, clenching her fist. She can do it. She can be a normal human who isn't wildly attracted to the guy on her doorstep despite being rejected by him, which, since he's here, was probably not a rejection and she's read too much into it. She unlocks the door, pulls it open, and steps out into the hall. Hi. Hello again. It's good to see you. He should be arrested for that smile of his. I got your message. I gathered. I know it's late, but I need to discuss something with you, and I'd rather not do that in the hallway. Elle clears her throat. Is it bad? No. But not good either. Whether it's good will depend entirely on you. All right, he's going for cryptic today. Come in. I was just about to start your commission. Do you mind if I finish that first and then we talk? That should be fine. Thank you. Luke enters behind her and locks the door. She stops by the front counter to delete his message, then proceeds to her workshop. So, fancy party tonight? You could say that. Did you have fun? Elle picks up her brush, the smoothness and coolness of the handle an invitation. No. She glances at him. He's in his spot on the couch, already loosening his bow tie and undoing the top button of his shirt. The slight dishevelment adds to his appeal. Luke is so uptight sometimes, and it makes Elle want to muss his hair, so to speak. See him more relaxed, like at a t-shirt and jeans level. You okay? Better now. His expression softens. Thank you. Don't like parties, huh? Not particularly, but this was an obligation. Ah, got it. You couldn't squeeze out of it. She understands. Okay, I'm about to start. Give me a few minutes. Elle peers at the amount of ink in the well, now diluted with the water from her brush. It should be enough. Her magic, already roused, sparks with excitement as she tests the viscosity of the ink. It's thin, but eager, running out of bounds, blooming across her paper in fast forward. Restraints off. She's ready. Her first stroke splatters wet and messy, drops of gray spraying over her work area. Grinning, Elle yanks the brush down, her magic causing the paper to hiss as if pressed upon by an iron. Ink and water fly, but she doesn't care, caught up in the joy of art, the challenge of making her magic do what she intends it to do. The paper drinks in her ink, the edges of her character growing indeterminate and fuzzy as she describes the last stroke. Next character. Elle doesn't bother picking up more ink, dragging her brush down so the characters will be joined by a long tail. Her hand flies, brush tip sweeping left to right, up to down, looping around in a messy grass script. She runs out of ink partway through, but pushes on, her magic roaring as she grinds the brush against the paper. Her magic seizes control, greedy. Untethered after so many years, it charges into her hand with glee, guides it to the inkstone, brings it back to the paper. Elle paints 2 more characters in the center of a vortex, no longer looking at what she's doing, her eyes open and sightless in her heightened state. All around her, papers flutter and whisper as her power ripples out. Brushes clack against each other, swinging on their hooks from a sudden wind. The tiny open mouths of her test tubes send up a chorus of hollow moans, echoed by the partially filled Erlenmeyer flask held hostage in its clamp. Elle's ponytail streams out behind her as if being tugged by an invisible hand. The moment the brush lifts off the paper, her magic winks out, leaving a deafening silence. Elle gasps, slumping, catching herself before her forehead slams into the surface of her workbench. The backs of her eyelids burn a neon green as if she stared into the sun. With effort, she forces herself up and fumbles for her brush rack. It takes several tries for her to hang up her brush. Elle? Luke touches her on the shoulder. She starts as if electrocuted, losing her balance. She topples, but Luke grabs her arm, hauling her body against his, counterbalancing until she isn't in any danger of falling. She curls herself into him like an L-sized pangolin, unable to do anything but wait until the shock passes. Are you okay? The resonance of his voice buzzes in his chest. It's strangely comforting, and so is his scent. Yesterday, when she'd given him that abrupt hug, she'd assumed he was wearing cologne because no one on Earth could smell that good naturally. She'd been wrong. Today, Luke is actually wearing cologne. Is that bergamot? And he smells even better. Yeah. You're shaking. No, that's just an earthquake. Can't you feel it? She should sit up, but no matter how much she commands herself to do it, she can't. Must be a personal earthquake. Absolutely, one person portion size like a personal pan pizza. Elle finally gets her muscles to obey her. She regrets the decision when her vision goes double. Thanks. He retreats to a respectful distance. I have concerns.
Is that it?
That's it. Yes, that was 8 minutes and 8 seconds.
Brava.
A very prosperous number, 8 minutes, 8 seconds.
I love Our Lady Jack is one of the audience members in the chat, and she said that the Carter Haas School of Folklore and the Fantastic read your book for their book club last month or a couple months ago. At the whole, and they're an incredible group of people, and they have a fairy tale salon, and they have a book of the month club, and guess you were it. So Our Lady Jack says it's such a privilege to hear you read it now, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. There is a lot of folklore just buried like about 67 layers deep in there.
I bet it's so fun to unpiece, or perhaps for some it will remain a mystery. That was wonderful. Now, Jaymee, do you have the cover for this to hold up?
I do, and not only that, but it's kind of like cat chewed.
Wait, this is
I
okay.
love this cover so much that I left it lying around my living room a lot, and like the second batch of foster cats I had just kind of got to it, which is very funny because the first batch I was editing this book when I had my first batch of cat rescues, and they ate a bunch of those papers too.
So maybe this is a weird coincidence, Jaymee, but when I sent the next book to my conversation partner, which was LD Lewis, her cat also ate the dust jacket. Her cat ate the cover of the Ark, and then like she had to take him to the vet.
Oh,
clearly.
I feel like Tachyon should
just delicious to cats.
I think
Tachyon rock alley.
Tachyon should say as one of the blurbs, it's like this book is catnip for cats.
That's actually like I made like a kitty version of the early rough galleys that were going out, and like among the things that is like the pages are crisp and the words made the paper fly, and it's from like one of my torty cats.
That'd be fun if there were like cat blurbs for books. Now I'm thinking about that. Wouldn't that be funny? Like if somebody has like an Instagram cat that they're always talking about, that'd be fun. Like if the cat was blurbing the books and make them all like, this book had no cats in it, 5 stars anyway. I don't know. It'd be funny.
There is a cat in the book. If my next book also gets eaten by cats, it's going to be a little bit concerning.
Or magical. It could be your thing. Like this, cats love my writing. What can I say? Like, what a great thing to know about your writing. All right. All the links are in the chat. Audience, we have 2 more readers, and we are going to our penultimate empress for the night is Mary G. Thompson, who is the author of Wolf Tomb, which book list called Impressively Unappetizing and Absolutely Unique. Her contemporary thriller, Amy Chelsea Stacy D, was a winner of the Westchester Fiction Award and a finalist for the Missouri Gateway Award. Thompson's short fiction has appeared in Dark Matter magazine, Apex magazine, and others. She attended the University of Oregon School of Law, practiced law for 7 years, and now works as a law librarian. She also holds an MFA in writing from the New School. Thompson currently lives in Washington, D.C. Find her on the web at marygthompson.com. I will also say that Mary knows if it's illegal to turn someone into a bird or not, as per the Genie reading earlier. And she says it's not illegal to turn somebody into a bird. And I thought you might want to know that. I'm going to drop her link to the chat, and I'm going to mute myself so she can read.
Thank you, Claire, for that introduction. So I'm going to read from my novella, One Level Down, which is about a woman. She knows she's in a simulated universe. She's 58 years old, but she's forced to look and act 5 years old because by her father, who controls the parameters of her program. And I'm just going to start reading from chapter 1. Our teacher, Camilla Wolkowitz, has driven us in the truck to the edge of the forest. By the time we reach the place where the trees thin out into the meadow, the sun has gone down. Camilla has passed out small solar-powered portable lights, and all 7 of us kindergartners are sitting on our benches in the open truck bed holding them. The kids are awed by being so far from the town at night. They speak to each other in whispers. This is probably my 30th field trip to the landing site, but I feel it too. It's as unusual for me to be out this far as it is for them. I want to see the ship, Katie says to me in a whisper shout. There's no ship, I say. The ship went back to where it came from. Why? Because it was expensive and Daddy sold it to help pay for this. I wave my arm at the forest, the sky, everything. But of course, Katie doesn't understand. Some of the adults who were born here don't care to think about the nature of our universe. How can I expect a 5-year-old to get what I mean by a hand gesture? Next, I'll try explaining that Daddy could have had another ship made out of thin air if he'd wanted to. I thought there was a spaceship, she says, peering over her lantern. Everyone, let's climb down. Careful now. Camilla glares up at me from her position at the bottom of the ramp leading down from the truck bed. For the last few minutes, I've been studiously ignoring her huffs and puffs as she wrangled the ramp into place. I shrug and smile at her. What do you expect a little girl like me to do? I say with my eyes. The kids file down the ramp, stepping on each other's ankles. I wait and go last. Over time, it's become second nature. When the kids are doing something fun, I try not to get in the way. It can be exhilarating to watch them experience all this for the first time. They have so much potential now. They could grow up to be the kind of people who want to explore our universe, who want to test its limits, who want to see how far we can go before the edges of the simulation dissolve. Or they could grow up to be like our teacher, plodding along year after year inside the world Daddy and his generation created. I walk down the ramp with purpose, holding my head high, making as much impact with my tiny feet as I can. The kids aren't watching me, and Camilla doesn't have the spine to report to Daddy. All she cares about is that no one reports to him on her. Can you be helpful for once, Ella? Are you going to teach them about how most of the stars up there will turn out to be illusions if we ever try to observe them up close? She doesn't humor me with an answer. Instead, she follows the kids into the meadow. They're waving their lanterns in each other's faces, attracting flies by the hundreds, sending bugs flying all around their heads. Eek, stop! Jaden is chasing Katie around with 2 lanterns. She grabs one from another kid and waves it back in his face. Bugs to you, she yells. Jaden drops both lanterns and swats at the flies around his face. Someone else has started crying. I stand at the edge of the meadow laughing. This has gone south faster than usual. Then again, I've never seen so many flies. It's probably related to the precipitous decline in the bird population. Which is no laughing matter, but I don't care right now. I'm having a night away from Daddy, and I'm going to enjoy it. Camilla wades into the middle of the fray. Okay, hand the lanterns over, she says. She walks around collecting them, and as she sets them down in a pile, she turns them off one by one. That has a magic effect on the kids, who finally sit on the grass and stay reasonably still. Camilla holds the last lantern. This is the spot where Philip Harkin first landed on Bella Anisio, she says. The spaceship was only a little bit bigger than our schoolhouse, and he was all alone. And he was very brave, because very few people had traveled this far from Earth. And he was very strong, and that's why the people chose him to go and find a planet for them to live on. Katie raises her hand high. Yes, Katie? Is that Ella's daddy? Yes, that's right, Camilla says, her voice strained. All the kids turn to look at me. I'm standing with my arms folded and my feet planted. I hope they can't see my face in the darkness, because I can't bring myself to put on the mask right now. I'm 58 years old, and I don't want to pretend to be 5 tonight. But I see the panic in Camilla's eyes, and I let my body relax. I unplant my feet and shift from one foot to the other. Ella, why aren't you with the group? Camilla asks. I saw a rabbit, I say, bounding over to the others and sitting at the end of the row. No, you didn't, Jaden retorts. Yes, I did. Don't go running off again. We're all going to stay right here, okay? Camilla pastes a smile on her face and goes on with her lesson. 66 years ago, right at this time of night, right here, Philip Harkin landed his ship, and he stepped out into this meadow and saw what we're seeing right now. Camilla turns off her lantern and looks up. My eyes are already acclimated to the darkness. I look up with the other kids. The moon is tiny, barely a pinprick, but the stars shine brightly across the sky. Despite myself, I get caught up. I see our sky through Daddy's eyes. I imagine what it must have been like to be all alone on a strange planet, the first human ever to set foot here, the first human ever to see these constellations. I breathe in the cool night air and imagine what it must have felt like for him to breathe it in for the first time. Practically, there's no difference between what we're experiencing now and what Daddy felt. The simulation is as real to us as the planet was to Daddy. If I were suddenly sitting in the grass on the original Bella Anisio, I'd never even know I'd been moved. I guess that's why they wait a few years to explain all that to the kids. For now, they just tell the story of Daddy's brave solo flight, the colonists' great migration, the founding of Harkintown. I wonder what the original looks like now, 66 years later. Time passes the same out there as in here. Are the buildings still standing, or has time and weather reduced them to ruins? I look up at the stars, knowing that even if Daddy ever lets me go, I'll never find what I'm looking for. I'll never see the real Bella Anisio. I'll never see Earth. I'll always be in here, in this universe, rubbing up against the edges. As Camilla continues telling the story, I shift on the grass so I can look behind me and to my left, to where the road continues along the meadow, out toward what's now a series of farms. I don't have to look far to see the spot where the servers are located on the real planet, where we actually are. Here there's nothing to mark the spot, but that's where he'll appear, or she, or they, or maybe it, the technician who's due to stop by and check up on us per Daddy's contract. Whoever will come will appear there, and he'll be the first person from outside ever to set foot in Bella Anisio. I quickly go back to watching Camilla. If she knew what I wanted to do, she'd tell Daddy, and I don't blame her. After what he did to her, it wouldn't be fair for me to expect more. And now we all get to live here, Camilla finishes. Katie raises her hand again. Why was Earth bad? Well, it wasn't bad, Camilla says, but it was crowded. There were so many people that there were hardly any other animals or plants. They don't have forests like this one anymore. She gestures at the forest behind her, which spreads farther than the eye can see, even in daylight. Did everyone leave? We don't know what happened after we left, Camilla says. They might have gone to other planets. Or continued the trend toward entering simulated universes and leaving their bodies to rot, I think. But of course, she isn't going to say that. Why don't we know? We're going to have to talk about that some other time, Katie, Camilla says. It's time to get home now. Everyone take a lantern and no fighting, or we'll just ride home in the dark. Wordlessly, I head for the pile of lanterns and help her hand them out to the kids. They manage not to be too unruly as we begin the short walk back to the truck. Stay together, Camilla shouts after them as Jaden runs ahead. Of all of them, he's the most likely to get lost in the woods for a few hours. Don't you ever wonder what's happening in the real world? I ask her. This is the real world, Ella, she says, sighing. You're real and I'm real. All brains are just elaborate programs. What does it matter if ours are held in a server instead of a mass of flesh? You're right, everything here is completely the same. I can't keep the bitterness out of my voice, especially now that we're about to get back in the truck and head home. She stops short and looks down at me. I'm sorry, Ella, she says. I really am. My stomach twists. Don't be. There's a long silence. She looks down at me, and I look up. She's seen the face of a cute little 5-year-old girl. I'm locking eyes with a woman who appears to be in her 30s, but is actually 47. I'm older than she is by 11 years. And like every other adult on this planet, she knows it. Katie tugs at my sleeve. What is it? Ella, where's the truck? What do you mean? I don't know why she's asking me and not her teacher. Actually, I have a terrible idea of why. Katie's smart enough to understand that something's different about me. I need to do better around her. I need to make sure she doesn't act like this around Daddy. Oh, my stars, Camilla says. Katie and I follow her eyes. The other 5 kids are all standing where the truck used to be. The entire road is empty. There's no truck. And there's no way we miss somebody driving it away. Camilla pulls her walkie-talkie out of its holster. This is Camilla Wolkowitz, she says. I've got my kindergartners on a field trip to Day One Meadow. We're going to need another truck. I'm sorry, can you just send someone out? Yes, it's not operational. Okay, thank you. She carefully doesn't look at me as she returns the walkie-talkie to her belt. We both know what the missing truck means. Okay, let's gather in a circle, Camilla says, making her voice as cheery as possible. We're going to play a couple games before we go home. Katie stays next to me, and as the game begins, she takes my hand. The lanterns, now set in the ground in front of us, light up the kids' faces. Something's wrong, Katie says. It's all right, I say. It's just a glitch. It can't hurt you. But can it? She and I and all of us here are elements of our universe, just like the truck. And so far, nothing that's gone missing has reappeared.
Oh, is that? What a cliffhanger. Nothing that's gone missing has reappeared. That's not terrifying. That's like true death in a virtual space. Terrifying, awful, scary. This is really wonderful. Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
Jaymee.
you think like, oh, the socks are going missing, and then it's like, oh, that's normally a cute concept, but then in this universe, it's like, oh, that's very wrong. That's not right at all.
That a horrible feeling when your socks go missing and suddenly you're like, but wait, what universe am I in? Jaymee, I know that Mary had a copy of her novella. Do you have the copy?
I do have the arc, but I do have a copy. And this is another like Elizabeth story original. And it also has this like really cool there's the title page that kind of reflects like the layers of virtual reality that that is discussed in the book. So I'm like really excited.
Cool.
I love this cover.
Oh, and it makes the I never noticed it before, but it kind of does that, tricks the eye into the 3-dimensional thing. When you held it up, it was dizzy. Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, and then there's like this, which again is like the symbolic representation of like what's going on with the concept of the book, which I'm really
wonderful.
Like, I love it so much.
I'm going to go ahead and after I introduce our next and last reader, I'll drop a link in the chat for Mary's book as well. But I am so pleased and astonished to present to you Pat Murphy, who is an acclaimed author of science fiction, fantasy, and science books for adults, teens, and children. She has received the Nebula Award for The Falling Woman, the World Fantasy Award for Bones, and the Christopher Award for The Wild Girls. Murphy has worked as a writer at the Exploratorium and Klutz. I lost my place. And Klutz Press, the complete Klutz series. She was the activity guru for the EdTech startup Mystery Science and the marketing director for the Crucible, a school of fire arts. Murphy lives in Boulder City, Nevada, where she's frequently visited by rabbits, quail, and the occasional coyote. All right, Pat, have fun. I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you for that introduction. And I'm going to be reading from my latest novel, The Adventures of Mary Darling. And you may know that Mary Darling is the mother of the children who flew away with Peter Pan. And I've been a little obsessed with Peter Pan ever since I read the novel version when I was like a child, and it kind of warped me because it's a lot darker than the play or the Disney version, which I've never seen. Anyway, like the original story of Peter Pan, my book begins in London in the year 1900 when Mary Darling and her husband come home from a dinner party and discover their children are gone. They've been kidnapped. And from Mary's point of view, this is a child abduction story. And the police are baffled, of course. Where did the children go? And if you were in London in 1900 and there was a crime that baffled the police, who would end up solving it? Sherlock Holmes. And it turns out that Mary Darling is actually the niece of Dr. John Watson, Sherlock's sidekick. And she has known Holmes since she was a girl and has never liked him very much. Anyway, so that's the start of the book. And I'm going to read you a scene from later on in the book. You might think I'd read a scene about Mary Darling because it is her book, but I can't resist reading a scene about Watson. I'm very fond of Watson. I think he gets the short end of the stick in a lot of Sherlock Holmes stories. So this, Mary has fled London to rescue her children. Holmes and Watson are in pursuit. And when this scene takes place, Watson is on a ship bound for Madagascar in pursuit of Mary. Nana, who you will remember is a Newfoundland dog who is the children's nanny, is with him. And this is from a chapter titled, You Can't Trust a Fairy. Watson and Nana were alone on deck. The sails, pulled taut in the wind, blocked Watson from the view of the sailor at the helm. Moonlight silvered the ocean swells. As Watson stepped toward the railing, he heard the thump of something hitting the deck, followed by a high-pitched jingling like Christmas bells. Nana, quicker than Watson to respond, bounded toward a large crate on the deck. Watson saw the ship's cat crouched beside the crate. Something was pinned beneath the cat's paws. It glowed with a golden light, flickering like a gigantic firefly. The Christmas bells jingled with an urgency akin to panic. "What is it you've caught, you old villain?" Watson asked, approaching the cat. As the light under the cat's paws glowed bright, Watson got a clear look at what the cat had caught. It was a creature with the body and face of a woman and wings like a giant dragonfly. "Get away from there!" Watson shoved the cat aside with his boot and knelt to examine the strange creature. It was no longer glowing. The crate blocked the moonlight, and Watson couldn't see it clearly. He took his handkerchief from his pocket, folded it to make a small pad, and laid the pad on the deck. While Nana watched, Watson carefully, almost tenderly, lifted the creature onto the pad. He picked up the pad and laid it on top of the crate where the moonlight was bright. Yes, it was a winged woman, pale brown skin, jet black hair, a curvaceous body, and wings like a giant insect. She wore a tunic of sorts, short enough to show off her legs, tight enough to show off her bosom. "What are you?" Watson murmured. "Surely not an insect." The creature opened her eyes and regarded him. She spoke then, flickering with the golden light he had seen earlier. Her voice was the jingling of Christmas bells. The fairy's name, and yes, she was a fairy, might be translated as Arabelle, Ara, which can mean gold or breeze or earth, depending on that language of origin you prefer, and Belle, which can mean beautiful and can mean belle. "An insect?" Arabelle snapped, offended by the thought that anyone could mistake her for an insect. "Certainly not, you silly ass." Her terror forgotten, Arabelle sat up carefully. A few bruises, nothing worse. She stood up and stretched her arms and fluttered her wings. Nothing broken. Watson blinked at her. So beautiful. Arabelle was always pleased to be admired. She smiled at him like a coquette at a dance. "You are a fool, but you have good taste." Like most fairies, Arabelle thought people were rather stupid. Great hulking oafs, stumbling through life, missing most of the beauty and all of the fun. Arabelle took flight, circling Watson's head and giving him the opportunity to admire her again. She called out, "Goodbye, my dear chuckle-headed chub," in a cheery jingle, and flew away, leaving Watson standing on the deck with his mouth agape. He took a step after her. but the foot that swung forward to step did not land. Watson found himself floating above the deck, drifting slowly toward the railing. You see, Watson's hand, the hand he had used to move Arabelle from the deck to his handkerchief, was covered with fairy dust. When Watson stepped toward the railing, the push of his foot propelled him upward on a trajectory that would, unchecked, carry him over the railing and out to sea. This could have ended very badly. Fortunately, Nana was watching. The dog lunged forward, determined to save Watson. It was also fortunate that Watson had never gone in for fashionable, slim-fitting trousers. He wore loose trousers that reached below the ankle. The late Mrs. Watson had deplored those trousers as ill-fitting and baggy. But in this situation, Watson's complete lack of fashion sense became his salvation. Just before Watson's feet passed over the rail, Nana's jaws clamped down on the cuff of his trousers. At the same time, Watson reacted to his peril by flailing wildly. Fortunately, the stout cloth of his trousers did not tear. Crouching low to the deck, Nana pulled, hauling Watson back on board the ship. Twisting in midair, Watson grabbed the railing with both hands. Confident he had the situation under control, he called to Nana. "Let go, Nana! Let go!" The big dog released her grip, and Watson clung to the railing, feet lifting toward the sky. He was flying, rather like a flag in the shape of a middle-aged British gentleman. Watson had always been a very solid sort of man, down to earth, no nonsense. But for a moment he wondered what would happen if he let go. How lovely it would be to let the wind carry him aloft, soaring above the waves. Where in the great wide world would the wind take him? But Watson was a practical man. As he clung to the railing, he realized that it was ridiculous to think that he could fly. He considered what Holmes would make of this situation. It was quite impossible. That's what Holmes would say. As Watson thought about Holmes, his body lost its buoyancy and his feet sank toward the deck. When he felt the deck beneath his feet, he used his grip on the rail to pull himself to a standing position. Nana stood close by his side, ready in case he took flight again. As he stood there, the wind carried away the fairy dust that clung to his hand. His body regained its former weight. Moving carefully, one hand still clutching the railing, Watson crouched down so he was eye to eye with Nana. "Thank you," he said to the big dog as he tousled her ears. Nana accepted his thanks with her usual dignity.
That was so charming. Oh my gosh, thank you. That was beautiful. Jaymee, do you have a cover?
I do have a cover for this
So do I.
one. You can see like Sherlock Holmes and Mary, and she's got a sword because she
Oh
fights
yes.
Oh, yes.
war.
That's
Little fairy. The interior for this one was done by John Coulthard, who is this British designer, and he does these beautiful, like very ornate yet simple and elegant designs for our books. And so we call on him when we've got certain styles that we want him to do, like our steampunk anthologies and a bunch of our like Ella Datlow books. So yeah.
I thought it was a
Oh, so
beautiful,
nice.
beautiful, beautiful design. It really,
Yeah.
it was way, way above any other book I've had. So it's great. And I was very torn whether I should read one of Mary's scenes, because Mary does some great sword fighting and there's much going on with Mary, but
Yeah.
I just thought
The
Watson was,
Arabelle scene is very good.
I mean, I
Like,
just wanted to have Watson have his moment of when
oh,
he
I love
could
that moment
fly.
when he's flying like a flag. Oh, I just love that.
and like all the little swear words that Arabelle comes up with for humans.
Well, that was,
Chuckle-headed chub.
you were very good at nudging me further in that direction. Jaymee was a fabulous editor for me. I loved working with.
Oh, I love hearing that. I love hearing that from the author. Does Mary Darling fight with pirates or become one? Please tell me.
Oh yes, of course
Yes.
there are sword fights. The part that I could not, Miss Sanders, who is a real historic figure who taught suffragettes to self-defense, has a sword fighting school in London, and
Yes.
so Mary has great history, and yes, there are sword fights. She gets
I
to
love
play a
that Mary
heroic
Darling is a
role.
suffragist. Oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. Oh, it's so great. Oh my
So
goodness.
so yeah, it's fun. It's fun, and it's also a critique of the British Empire. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
that kind of
I'm so down.
post-colonial fiction is a good, like a good to examine, childhood favorites and then, give them the shaft sometimes. Okay, so I just wanted to thank all you readers from Tachyon and Jaymee. Thank you so much. And it looks like the chat really, really enjoyed themselves. And this will be on YouTube soon for posterity. Thank you kindly so much. Happy anniversary, Tachyon. And thank you, Carlos, for co-hosting and doing all the back end of this. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful night.
Thank you so much for hosting, Claire and Carlos. Happy
Yes,
birthday,
thank you so much.
absolutely.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you so much.
Lots of
Bye-bye.
fun.
Are we off air?
Thanks so much.